we're going to rank our top 10 players in this football game. I prefaced it many times. I'll do it one more time. This is a losing game for us making a list. Anytime you make a list and put it out there into the internet, like you're going to get dunked on and going to get some pushback, and that's fine. But legitimately, you could do a million different lists of this top 10. You could do a list of 20, 25 players because this game is just stacked with NFL talent. And so we're going to do our very best to break it down, but we'll get to some of the omissions after this. Another disclaimer. This is the list that is how these players are trending going into this game. So there's a couple of players now where you would say, hey, that guy belongs in the top 10 based on his body of work during the regular season. You would be right. However, we think some players are maybe trending and playing better in this playoff to put them ahead of that player. This will make more sense as we go along as you hear some of the omissions. So let's start at number 10. Anthony Hill for Texas. Linebacker, absolute dog. He doesn't necessarily stuff the stat sheet the way that maybe you would expect a player in the top 10 of the Cotton Bowl to stuff the stat sheet. For me, it's more so you watch the dude just play ball, watch Zero fly around out there, and the pressure he creates, the things he does that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. He is a havoc wreaker. He has got to find a way to impact the game the way he's impacted these last few games for Texas against Ohio State, because obviously the passing attack of Ohio State has been nothing short of prolific. So you want to have a chance in this game to try to slow down that offense, got to get to Will Howard. A big part of doing that will be Anthony Hill, and throughout the course of the season, he has made a name for himself, being active, being a havoc wreaker, and I expect no different here going forward in the biggest game of Texas' season to this point, up against Ohio State. Speaking of wreaking havoc, at number 9, we got Ohio State edge Jack Sawyer. He's got 5 pass deflections in the playoff, which is bizarre. There's DBs that aren't even sniffing 5 pass deflections in the playoff. The way that this Ohio State defensive line has really turned it on throughout the course of this playoff, I think in large part you look at the catalyst, look at the thermostat for that defensive line and for this team, quite frankly, I think it's Jack Sawyer. So, yeah, a couple of sacks as well. He's been active in that front, but the way that he has, again, turned it on, in large part I think correlates pretty closely to the emotional tenor of how Ohio State has turned it on throughout this playoff. So Jack Sawyer for us is at number 9. Now at number 8, we have linebacker Cody Simon from Ohio State. He's got 23 total tackles this playoff. Talk about active. Talk about making an impact on a game. He also very nearly had a pick 6 against Oregon if he's able to look that one in eagle-eye vision and take it to the house. He is very similar to Jack Sawyer, a big part of why Ohio State is playing at the level they're playing at. Not necessarily the emotional energizer bunny that Jack Sawyer is, but Cody Simon, a leader of that defense, and how active he's been in itself, I think, means you got to have him in the top 10. Have a hard time bumping him any lower than 8 on this list. At number 7, you're sensing a trend here. Another Buckeye. Travian Henderson, running back for Ohio State, 9.9 yards a carry and 4 touchdowns. He's only got less than 20 carries in this college football playoff. And to be 9.9 yards a carry and to be sniffing 100 yards in both those games, to be in that neighborhood, is ridiculous, man. Absolutely ridiculous. If you disagree with Travian Henderson being on this list, point to somebody that's doing much more than him from a production standpoint to put him ahead of Travian Henderson, because I have a hard time doing it. So he's absolutely on this list. He's number 7 for us. And again, almost a first down every time he touches it. He's also benefited from the Ohio State passing attack taking off. But Travian Henderson for us, number 7 on this list. JT Tuimoloau, edge defender. Kind of the bookend there for Jack Sawyer. He's got 4 sacks this playoff. Again, I hesitate to put as many Ohio State players in this top 10 as we are right now, but 4 sacks in the playoff, wreaking havoc. He's benefited as well from the Jack Sawyer activity that he's had. It's tough for me to put a guy with 4 sacks in this college football playoff not in this top 10. So JTT is number 6 on this list for us. At number 5, we got Will Howard. Now, this is not Will Howard from the regular season. Will Howard from the regular season does not make this list. Hear me very clearly. But in these last 2 games, he has been hooping. 5 touchdowns through the air, over 600 yards. He's been taking big swings. He's been aggressive. He's absolutely benefited from the Jeremiah Smith show and the Chip Kelly mad scientist deal they got drawn up offensively. But like Will Howard, man, this is not the Will Howard that came from Manhattan, Kansas, and everyone's wondering, okay, well, we kind of threw a couple of picks when he was in Manhattan, like had 10 interceptions last year. Are we sure he's good? Are we sure he's good enough? We told you post-Oregon, he's good enough. For me, it's not a question of his ceiling. It's more a question of his floor. If Ohio State wins the national championship, but he's good enough now. He's good enough to win you the whole darn thing in Atlanta. We'll see if he does. But the way that he's playing right now, top 5 player for us in this Cotton Bowl. The Hard Count was brought to you today by Axia Time. Axia Time, the official timepiece of both the college football playoff and the Heisman Trophy. Axia Time is probably now the best kept secret in college football. Incredible combo of product, quality, and cool designs. No one is doing this right now in the college space. For the college football playoff, Axia has created a series of limited edition timepieces for each of the 12 teams in the college football playoff. You got 2 designs per team and only 100 watches now per design. Go to AxiaTime.com to check out your team's college football playoff timepiece. But listen, y'all, gotta act fast. These are going to sell out. If you're a watch person, you'll see these specs, quickly realize great value that you're getting. If you're not a watch person, do your homework. You'd figure out this is a great deal when it comes to these watches. So check them out at AxiaTime.com. That's AXIATime.com. Commemorate this season in style with a watch that tells so much more than time. And number 4, arguably the best offensive line in America. Now, he's been dinged up. Obviously, depends on how you feel about Will Campbell and some other characters across the country, but Kelvin Banks, offensive lineman for Texas, is going to be a very high draft pick. He is going to be a major part of this game with the other edge defenders we've already listed for you that's going to play in this game. So, Kelvin Banks, I know it hasn't been the perfect playoff for you, brother, but like this is the spot now. This is a spot where you step up big and you remind everybody why you are going to be a top 15, top 10 pick coming up here in this draft in the spring. And number 3, another Longhorn now. So the folks in Austin, I'm sure you're kind of feeling a little bit agitated here when you heard 10 through, 5. Got some Longhorns for you here. Jahdae Barron, corner for Texas. I mean, DB, nickel, whatever you want to call him. He's absolute ball hawk for them. Jim Thorpe Award winner, Jahdae Barron. Now, the matchup between him and Jeremiah Smith is going to be blockbuster. Jeremiah Smith, we'll get to him in a little bit. Don't want to spoil it, but like he may be the first player taken when it's time for him to go to the NFL. There's some folks that have takes out there that like he'd be a first-round pick if he declared tomorrow. Obviously, he's not eligible for the draft, not a Jeremiah Smith segment or a talking point right now. But for Jahdae Barron, if you can limit Jeremiah Smith, if you can just in some way, shape, or form keep him from having the game he had against Oregon or the game he had against Tennessee, that's the path where Texas has a real shot to win this thing. That's the path where Texas has a chance to maybe spoil everyone's college football playoff picks, everyone that's taken Ohio State with the points, and put Texas in a spot where they can hoist the whole darn hardware when they get to Atlanta. So we'll see if that happens, but Jahdae Barron, man, the best DB in America with that award behind his name. Is he the best DB on this list, though? For us, we got Caleb Downs. Now, Caleb Downs, you're saying, JD, he wasn't even a Jim Thorpe Award winner. He was a Jim Thorpe Award finalist for the best DB in America. And Caleb Downs, to me, honestly, is probably the second best player still in this playoff, depending on how you feel about Tyler Warren. He's going to be the second best player next year in college football. Hear me loud and clear. What he does, patrolling the middle of the field, like our producer Cato likes to talk about, I mean, that is just, I think, he does so much that, again, like Anthony Hill, it doesn't show up in the box score, but I guarantee you, the defensive line of Ohio State, they're having the level of success they're having in large part because of what the Ohio State secondary is doing. And the Ohio State secondary, to me, goes as Caleb Downs goes. So, obviously, does a lot in run support as well. It's been well documented what he did to Alabama a season ago, but Caleb Downs is a bad man. He's going to prove that again in this college football playoff. To me, the second best player in this Cotton Bowl. And the best player in this Cotton Bowl, the best player in the playoff, the best player in college football next year, and a guy that I think could very well be the first player taken when it's time to go to the NFL is none other than true freshman Jeremiah Smith. We talked about it during our prediction for this game. Jahdae Barron is going to have his work cut out for him trying to take away Jeremiah Smith. Full transparency, I've told you I think it's going to take more than just one individual to try to slow that guy down. Did you take away Jeremiah Smith if you're Texas? If your answer is yes, my return question is, what did it cost you? Endgame, Marvel, kind of that vibe. Your answer back is probably everything. It cost me everything. Because Jeremiah Smith, even if he doesn't have a day where he goes for a $150 through the air and he's got multiple touchdowns, even if he just goes for what I've used the numbers in the 60s before, if he goes for 64 yards on the day, it'd be kind of surprising, right? But I guarantee you, him going for 64 yards means Emeka Egbuka probably got loose for in the neighborhood of 100 yards. It means the run game was probably having a great day as well, and they went probably in the neighborhood of a $180 to 200 yards. So the sacrifice you have to make as a defense, giving resources to Jeremiah Smith, leaves you exposed in so many other places. And then also, if you do want to try and give him man coverage, again, Jahdae Barron will give him a tremendous battle. It's NFL and NFL right there. I would not put it past Jahdae Barron to win a fair amount of those battles, but at some point, man, in man coverage, Jeremiah Smith is going to win. And I think he's going to win in a big way. So those are our top 10. We'll recap that. We'll get to some of the big omissions right now because there's a lot of them. At number 10, Texas linebacker Anthony Hill. At number 9, Ohio State's Jack Sawyer off the edge. Cody Simon, linebacker for Ohio State. At number 7, Travion Henderson. At number 6, JT Tuimoloau. At number 5, Will Howard. At number 4 and number 3, we get to some Longhorns. Kelvin Banks, the offensive lineman out there in Austin. Jahdae Barron, Jim Thorpe Award winner for Texas, the DB. Caleb Downs, Ohio State safety. And at number 1, Jeremiah Smith, the best player in this playoff. So again, like, if you're yelling at your YouTube screen, I don't blame you. I did this list 4 or 5 different times and got a variation of different names. Some guys that were left off that absolutely should be in this top 10, but they're not just because of how stacked this game is. Michael Taft is an All-American safety, and he's not in our top 10. And you go check my receipts on Twitter. I'm as Michael Taft a guy as there is in the sports world. Forget sports media, in the sports world. I think he's a dog. I love the way he feels in run support. I don't have a big issue with the no targeting call there against Arizona State. However, you point to the ASU game. We're going to be ticky-tacky because of how stacked this game is. Based on trend, I'll leave Michael Taft just outside the top 10. Emeka Egbuka. Emeka Egbuka is probably going to be a top 3 round pick here when it comes to April. I don't pretend to know exactly his draft stock. There was a point this year when Jeremiah Smith was still coming onto the scene where you're like, yeah, that guy's the future, but Emeka Egbuka is the guy that's waited his turn, earned his stripes, leader of that wide receiver room, arguably a leader of the offense. We don't have him in the top 10. I hate it too. He's had a great playoff as well. Had, multiple games of over 5 catches, gone under 100 yards in every game but one during the regular season, the Marshall game. And again, you don't knock Emeka Egbuka so much for that. He should be in the top 10 is what I'm trying to tell you. He should be in the top 10. We don't have him there. Shame on us. But freaking stacked list. Now, the most notable one, maybe the most noticeable one, if you're a Texas fan, is Quinn Ewers. And I didn't feel great about leaving Quinn Ewers off this list, to be real. Coming off a big game against ASU where he was timely feels like a funny word to use, but I guess it fits based on how he played in the fourth quarter and overtime. Hitting an absolute dime on 4th and 13 and dialing it up. Hasn't played well enough over the course of the last few games based on his trend outside of the ASU game even for me to put him in the top 10. Now, he has to play like a top 10 player for them to win the football game. And I think he has top 10 player ability, but he's been dinged up. There's been just a situation after every Texas game you're like, yeah, I guess they won, but like that didn't look right, didn't feel right. And I felt that way for the majority of the ASU game as well. So, strong finish. Quinn Ewers, I actually contemplated very heavily on putting him at 10 for the sake of this list, but Anthony Hill, to me, you just got to put at 10. Quinshon Judkins. Why is he's going to be an NFL running back. Why is he not on this list? If you got to pick a running back from Ohio State, and we felt like we had to here, Travion Henderson has been more productive. Quinshon Judkins could have the game tomorrow and be the guy that makes us look absolutely foolish, but Quinshon Judkins for us, just too many other players before we put him on this list. Colin Simmons, also a guy that probably deserves to be on this list. This is the last omission I want to talk through. I'm sure we'll get more feedback in the comment section, so looking forward to staring down the barrel there and standing in the paint. I guess if you really wanted to make a case against him, you could say, well, he's still young, he's still progressing. He may take over the game in this one in the Cotton Bowl. I could see that happening with how prolific he's been off the edge for them, the true freshman. But again, just with how stacked this game is, felt like Colin Simmons maybe is on the outside looking in as a true freshman. And we say that with the true freshman being number 1 on this list for us. So, again, if you disagree, you're right. I'm not sitting here trying to defend this list with a hammer and a sword or a shield or anything. I don't know why I picked those weapons to defend the list with. However, yeah, that's the list. That's the list. We'll stand by it. And if you disagree, I understand. And you can take that up at the comment section.